Then again, if you do want a bit more excitement on the way to Candace's camp, you can easily get it. Annoy a Crebain until it attacks, or taunt an orc as I'm doing here, and you're instantly having a direct influence on the environment around you. You're probably noticing at this point that the game is looking noticeably different now to the film, and this is a deliberate choice. The game makers were told that they had to make sure that the game didn't resemble the film too closely, and I think they've done that quite successfully. They've managed to differentiate in the look and the feel, although there are some similarities. I think you do feel that you're in a very different place. Here we are at Candace's camp. I think you'll agree that this is fairly atmospheric. You certainly get a good sense of place, and it does have a different feel to the rest of the Weather Hills area. There are a couple of things that I think could have been done better to increase the sense of interactivity here, though. Again, as with the whole game, I don't find the way of getting quests here massively interactive, because you do get that wall of text effect, especially when you have the epic quests and you have to talk to Candace to get your quest. You go off and do it, you come back and you have to talk to him again, and once that quest's done, then you have to come out of that quest and wait for the next one to load before you get the next one. That kind of jars for me. The other thing which I think would probably be make for a better user experience would be for those times when you come back to the camp in between completing quests, because he has a couple of other trophy quests for killing orcs and things. I think it would be better if it was like in some of the Hobbit villages, where even if they don't have anything new to add, they might have a comment about the quest, or maybe something that they'll say out loud, just a random comment, rather than just kind of sitting there with a blue ring over his head. I think that kind of breaks the magic circle of the game, if you like. One of the side points that I want to make here, while we're around Candace's camp, is on the role of the players in the overall narrative. I know that some people have commented that they think it's maybe a bit of a shame that you don't really see that much of Frodo and the main fellowship during this part of the game, apart from the odd cutscene. And I think, although they've got a point there, I think it kind of depends on how you interpret it. I mean, for me, I see what the players are doing in the game as kind of a backup operation at home, to distract some of Sauron's forces from the Fellowship and effectively, distract attention so that they can get away and get on with what they're doing. And I think this is kind of summed up for me by the name of the kinship that I joined when I was first playing Lotro for this course. This kinship was a personal kinship that belonged to a player called Dinenthor, who opened the kinship to Coursera members. And his kinship was called Vigil of the Hearth. And one of the reasons that I like that name was because for me it did symbolise the importance of the role that players undertake in the game. Kind of like the war on the home front, like in World War II, keeping an eye on things, getting attention away from the Fellowship, almost like a guerrilla tactic. And I think probably a quote from the book that would sum this up would be in The Return of the King, when, in a similar way, Aragorn and the others are about to go to war with Mordor to distract Sauron's eye from Frodo and Sam. And they say, we must at all costs keep his eye from his true peril. We must call out his hidden strength so that he shall empty his land. And effectively, I think that's what we're doing, by causing trouble and frustrating Sauron's schemes throughout Middle-earth. My take on it all is that he's going to be spending so much time dealing with these smaller interruptions that hopefully he'll miss Frodo and the others sneaking up to Mordor. In the book on Weathertop itself, we have a really nice description of, it gives you an idea of what's happened before they got there. And it goes, in the centre, a cairn of broken stones had been piled. They were blackened as if with fire. Suddenly, he stooped and looked at the stone on top of the cairn. It was flatter than the others and whiter as if it had escaped the fire. This is a really good atmospheric description, and I think it's really well remediated certainly in the game. As you run up in Weathertop, you can look at the ground and see it's really blackened. And if you walk over to the cairn, you do actually see the stone. And if you zoom in on it a bit closer, you see strange markings on it, which, coming back to the book, Strider said that he thinks that they stood for the letters and numbers G3, and they're a sign that Gandalf was there on October the 3rd, so they know when he's been there. I think, again, this is a really good. One of the interesting differences between the book and the game compared to the film with the Weathertop episode is what happens on the top of Weathertop. There's no cairn, there's no white stone from Gandalf. And I guess we have to think about why that's different to the narrative in the game and the book. Does it work? I guess it does, but mainly from a film perspective, I don't think it would have worked this way in the book or so much in the game. Because the reason that this is done in the film is to show you earlier on in the film the Isengard scene where Saruman's revealed as being in talks with Sauron, where he tries to capture Gandalf. And I can see why they've done it that way, because, you know, when people are recounting something that's already happened earlier on in the kind of time continuum of what's happening in the narrative, it kind of breaks it up and it can be a bit confusing. But I did like the way that Gandalf was leaving signs for them, so I think personally I prefer the way that the book and the game have done it. So in the final scene from Weathertop, it's intriguing that what happens diverges between the book version, where it was just Frodo and Strider on top of Weathertop, going back down to the hobbits that were hiding in the thicket. But then in the film, immediately that Frodo is injured, the hobbits and the ranger rush to Rivendell. But in the game, unless you're doing the retake Weathertop instance, I think it's kind of a bit of an anticlimax, because you get to the top and you can see where Gandalf's been and that there's signs of people that have been there. But then apart from a few Crebain, you know, there's not that much to do up there. I mean, you can take in the views and everything, and you could see Floyd and his friend there that you can get a special Easter egg pass for. But it was missing a sense of climax for me. I think maybe it would be cool if they had some kind of big, maybe elite monster or something that would regularly respawn there, so you could kind of revisit and just feel for yourself that sense of terror when, you know, in the book and the film, the hobbits look up and they suddenly realise that there's their worst nightmare, something that's bigger and badder and more dangerous than they could hope to be, and thinking, oh my goodness, what are we going to do next? I personally would like to see something like that in there. But overall, you know, I think the game stands up really well compared to the book, and I'd say possibly even a bit better than the film, actually. Certainly from a viewer, user, reader's point of view, I think it's much more in keeping. You feel much more in the world in the game than you do in the film. That's my opinion. I don't know what everyone else thinks. But that's it from me. Thanks very much for listening to my presentation, and I'll be very interested in hearing what everyone else has to say as well. Thanks very much.